The bitterness of burnt coffee clung to the back of my throat, like a warning I should have heeded years ago. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen, our kitchen, the one with the chip tile Mom always meant to replace, and watched steam curl from the ancient percolator. Tuesday morning, 7:15, the light slanting through the window hit the linoleum at exactly the angle I remembered. Dust motes suspended in the beam like they'd been waiting 23 years for me to notice them again. My hands were smooth, unlined. The scar I'd gotten from the broken wine glass at Thanksgiving 2031 was gone, the skin on my knuckles unblemished and foreign. I pressed my palms against the counter, feeling the familiar crack in the laminate, the one shaped like a lightning bolt that had been there since I was 12. Since I was Maya. "You're going to be late for school," Mom's voice drifted from upstairs, the same slightly hoarse quality she'd had before the treatments, before the diagnosis, before everything fell apart. I closed my eyes and let the sound wash over me, a voice I hadn't heard in 16 years. Not since she died when I was 28. Not since I'd been alone at her funeral because Lily had been too busy with her new life, her stolen life, to come home. But that hadn't happened yet. Wouldn't happen the same way. Couldn't. The burnt coffee smell intensified as the percolator sputtered, and with it came the sharp clarity that I'd been trying to suppress since I woke up this morning in my childhood bed, 17 years old again, with posters of bands I'd forgotten I loved, and a geometry textbook I'd already failed once. The calendar on the refrigerator showed March 2008. 18 years had dissolved like sugar in water, and I was back at the beginning, at the exact moment when everything had gone wrong the first time. 3 months before graduation. 4 months before Lily would steal my acceptance letter. 5 months before my entire future would be ripped away and handed to someone else, my twin sister. I picked up the coffee pot, watching my hands shake slightly as I poured. The ceramic mug was the one I'd broken in 2009, the one with the faded university logo. It was whole again. Everything was whole again, reset to a point where I could still... "Are you having coffee? Since when do you drink coffee?" I turned. Lily stood in the doorway, her hair still wet from the shower, our school uniform crisp and perfect in a way mine never managed to be. We had the same face, technically, the same dark eyes, the same sharp chin, the same small mole just above the left eyebrow. But where I'd always been soft edges and uncertainty, Lily had learned early how to weaponize our identical features. How to stand like she owned every room she entered. How to become me when it mattered most. "Since today," I said, taking a sip and trying not to wince at the bitterness. In my previous life, and God, how insane was it that I could think that phrase, I hadn't started drinking coffee until college. Except I'd never made it to college. Not the first time around. Lily shrugged and grabbed an apple from the bowl, her phone already in her other hand, thumb moving across the screen. "Mom's freaking out about college tours again. She left like 6 sticky notes on your door." "I saw them." "Did you finish the FAFSA stuff?" My grip tightened on the mug. "Yeah." "Cool, I still need to..." She paused, looking at me with something that might have been concern if I didn't know better. "You okay? You look weird." I forced a smile. "Bad dream." "Whatever. I'm leaving in 10 if you want a ride." She disappeared back upstairs, and I heard her bedroom door close. Our rooms were across the hall from each other, mirror images, because of course they were. Everything about us was meant to be symmetrical. The same face, the same genes, the same possibilities stretched out ahead of us like twin paths through a forest. Except one of those paths had been paved with my bones. I set down the coffee and moved to the refrigerator, where Mom's sticky notes bloomed like neon flowers. "Maya, remember to check admission portal." "Maya, financial aid deadline is next week." "Maya, so proud of you." That last one had 3 exclamation points, the eyes dotted with little hearts. I pulled them all down slowly, one by one, feeling the tacky residue on my fingertips. In the first timeline, the real timeline, the one I'd lived and lost, I never got to check the admission portal, because by the time I tried to log in, the password had been changed. By the time I called the admissions office, confused and panicking, they'd told me that yes, Maya Chen had confirmed her acceptance, had submitted her housing deposit, had enrolled in summer orientation, Maya Chen with my social security number, my test scores, my essays about growing up in a family that didn't have much money but had mountains of dreams. My story about volunteering at the community center, teaching English to immigrant families, finding purpose in service. All of it stolen. All of it worn like a costume by someone who knew exactly how to move through the world as me because she'd been practicing her entire life. The gardenias outside the kitchen window were blooming early. I could smell them through the screen, sweet and cloying. The same scent that had been everywhere the day I'd finally confronted Lily, 6 years into the future that no longer existed. The day she'd laughed and told me I should be grateful she'd done something with the opportunity, that I would have wasted it anyway, that I'd always been the weak one. The day I'd slapped her across the face and felt nothing but a hollow satisfaction that faded before my palm stopped stinging. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the window, watching the white blossoms sway in the breeze. The last thing I remembered from my old life was the hospital, the antiseptic smell mixing with gardenias from the arrangement someone had sent, the beeping of monitors, the doctor explaining in careful clinical terms that the cancer had spread, that there was nothing more they could do. I'd been 41 years old. I'd worked 3 jobs. I'd lived in a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood. I'd watched Lily's success from a distance, her graduation, her career, her marriage to someone I'd once introduced her to, her children whose names I only knew from Facebook posts I shouldn't have been looking at. And then I'd woken up here, in the before. The screen door creaked and I jumped. Dad stood on the back porch. He still in his security guard uniform from the night shift, his lunch pail in one hand. "Morning, sweetheart. You're up early." I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. Dad. Dad with his hair still black instead of gray, with his shoulders straight instead of bent, with his eyes clear instead of clouded with the disappointment of watching both his daughters drift away from him. Dad, who would die of a heart attack in 2015 before I could ever apologize for the distance between us, before I could explain that I hadn't abandoned the family. I'd been erased from it. Maya, his brow furrowed. "You feeling all right?" "I'm fine." The words came out hoarse. "Just tired." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Big day coming up? Your mother's been talking about nothing but graduation and college for months. She's proud of you, you know." We both are." The lump in my throat grew. "I know." "You worked hard for this. Don't let anyone tell you different." He squeezed my shoulder as he passed, heading for the stairs. "I'm going to catch a few hours of sleep. Make sure your sister doesn't make you late." I listened to his footsteps creak up the stairs, to the sound of him greeting Mom in the hallway, their voices low and affectionate. In 7 years, they'd barely speak to each other. The betrayal would poison everything, turn our family into a collection of people who'd once shared a name and an address but nothing else. Unless I stopped it. Unless I used this impossible second chance for exactly what it was meant for. The coffee had gone cold in my cup. I dumped it in the sink and watched it swirl down the drain, dark and bitter. Outside, the gardenias nodded in the wind, their white petals perfect and pristine. In a few months, they'd wilt and brown, drop to the ground, get trampled into the mud. But right now, they were beautiful. Right now, everything was still possible. I went upstairs to get ready for school, passing Lily's closed door without knocking. Inside my room, I pulled the sticky notes from my pocket and laid them out on my desk, Mom's looping handwriting stark against the neon paper. "Check admission portal. Financial aid deadline. So proud of you." From my backpack, I pulled out the folder I'd been carrying the day before, the one that contained printed copies of all my college application materials. In the original timeline, I'd kept everything digital, trusting the cloud, trusting the portals, trusting that my carefully crafted future was safe. I'd learned better. This time, I had physical copies of everything: emails, confirmation numbers, screenshots, and more importantly, I had something I hadn't had before: knowledge of exactly when and how Lily would make her move. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the small notebook I'd started this morning after waking up in the past. Inside, I'd written down every date I could remember, every detail of how the theft had unfolded. April 15th, acceptance letters arrive. April 18th. I come home to find the mail has already been opened, but Lily says nothing arrived for me. April 20th. I call the admissions office. Confused. April 23rd. I discover someone has already confirmed enrollment using my information. By the time I'd figured out what happened, it had been too late. The slots were filled. The deadlines had passed, and Lily had been so careful, so methodical, that proving the theft seemed impossible. Same DNA, same address. She'd forged my signature perfectly, of course. We'd been practicing each other's handwriting since we were kids, a twin game that had seemed harmless once. The principal had believed her. The university had believed her. Even my parents, in the end, had chosen to believe that maybe I'd gotten confused, maybe I'd misremembered, maybe I should just be happy for my sister and move on. Only I hadn't moved on. I'd spent the next 23 years in the shadow of what I'd lost. Lily knocked on my door. 5 minutes. Coming, I called back. I put the notebook in my backpack, zipping it carefully into the inner pocket. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. 17-year-old Maya stared back, her eyes wider than they should be, her expression older than her face. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be this young, to have my whole life ahead of me. Except it wasn't ahead anymore. It was behind and ahead simultaneously, a loop I'd been given the chance to unfold differently. The drive to school was quiet. Lily scrolled through her phone while I piloted Dad's old Honda through familiar streets, past houses I'd forgotten existed, past the corner store that would close in 2011, past the stop sign where I'd gotten into a fender bender in the original timeline because I'd been crying too hard to notice the other car. I didn't cry this time. I watched the road with the hyper-awareness of someone who'd already lived this day and knew exactly how precarious everything was. "Are you going to Lauren's party this weekend?" Lily asked without looking up from her phone. Lauren Martinez. I'd forgotten about her. Maybe. She's inviting the guys from Westfield? Should be fun. Fun? I remembered that party vaguely. I'd gotten drunk for the first time, made out with someone whose name I couldn't recall, woken up on Lauren's bathroom floor at 3 a.m., While I'd been busy being 17 and stupid, Lily had been upstairs rifling through Lauren's older sister's college paperwork, learning exactly how the system worked, planning her future theft. "I might stay in," I said. Lily finally looked at me. "Since when are you boring?" "Since I have a calculus test to study for." "It's not until Tuesday." "I know." She went back to her phone, and I felt the familiar irritation that I'd forgotten I used to feel around her, the constant low-level annoyance of being compared, being mirrored, being half of something instead of whole. In my old life, that irritation had curdled into rage and then eventually into a numb acceptance that this was just how things were. But I wasn't numb anymore. I was awake, alert, and absolutely certain of what needed to happen next. We pulled into the school parking lot, Marshall High School with its squat brick buildings and dying lawn, and the smell of cafeteria food already wafting through the air, even though it was barely 8 in the morning. I'd graduated from here in 2008, and then I'd watched from a distance as Lily walked across the same stage 3 months later, wearing my future like a crown. Not this time. I grabbed my backpack and headed toward the entrance. Lily peeled off to find her friends, and I was grateful for the separation. I needed space to think, to plan, to figure out exactly how to approach what came next. The hallways were loud with the chaos of too many teenagers in too small a space. Lockers slammed. Someone's phone played music too loudly. A couple made out against the water fountain. It was all exactly as I remembered, and also completely foreign. Like a movie I'd seen so many times I'd forgotten it was fiction. "Maya, wait up!" I turned. Kenji Park jogged toward me, his backpack hanging off one shoulder, his hair artfully messy in that way he'd spent 20 minutes in the bathroom achieving. Kenji had been my best friend in high school, the only person who'd fully believed me when I'd accused Lily of theft. He'd stuck by me through the worst of it, and then we'd lost touch when he went away to college, the college I was supposed to attend, and I'd been too ashamed to maintain the friendship. Looking at him now, 17 and eager and kind in a way he wouldn't be able to maintain after the world beat it out of him, I felt something in my chest crack. "Hey," I managed, "did you finish the history essay? Because I totally spaced on it until last night, and I'm pretty sure I wrote 8 pages about absolutely nothing." "I finished it last week." He blinked. "Who are you, and what have you done with Maya?" I forced a laugh. New me, getting my shit together. "Is this about college stuff? Because your mom cornered my mom at the grocery store and went on for like 20 minutes about how you got into Stanford." My stomach dropped. Stanford. I'd forgotten about Stanford. In the original timeline, I'd been accepted early decision. It had been my dream school, the place I'd worked towards since freshman year. the place Lily had ultimately attended in my name, living my dreams so thoroughly that by the time I saw pictures of her at graduation, I barely recognized the person she'd become. Or maybe I'd just never known her at all. Yeah, I said quietly. Stanford. That's huge. We should celebrate. You, me, bubble tea after school. I can't today. I have something I need to do. Kenji's expression shifted to concern. Everything okay? You seem off. I'm fine, just stressed. About what? You literally already got in. The hard part's over. If only that were true. The hard part was just beginning. The hard part was figuring out how to protect what was mine without destroying my entire family in the process, without becoming the kind of person who could watch her own sister get arrested and feel nothing but satisfaction. Except when I thought about Lily, about everything she'd taken from me, I did feel satisfaction, dark and fierce and righteous. Maybe I'd already become that person, maybe I always had been, just waiting for the right provocation. The bell rang and Kenji waved as he headed toward his first period class. I made my way to English, sliding into my usual seat by the window. The teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, was writing something on the board about the Great Gatsby, and I stared at the words without processing them. Instead, I thought about April 15th, 3.5 weeks away. In the original timeline, the acceptance letter had arrived in a thick envelope, Stanford's crest embossed on the front. I'd been at work, my after-school job at the library, when it came. By the time I got home, Lily had already intercepted it. She'd claimed she thought it was hers, that in the pile of mail, with both our names so similar, she'd gotten confused. But she'd had 3 days to say something, and she hadn't. 3 days during which she'd carefully steamed open the envelope, read every page, memorized my student ID number and acceptance code, and then resealed it so perfectly I'd never known it had been tampered with. By the time I opened it, she'd already changed the password on the admission portal, already confirmed enrollment, already set everything in motion. This time, I'd be home when the mail arrived. This time, I'd be watching. But watching wasn't enough, because Lily was careful and smart, and if I simply prevented the theft without proof, she'd find another way. She'd wait, she'd adapt, and I'd spend the next 4 years looking over my shoulder, waiting for her to strike. No, I needed evidence. I needed her to actually attempt the theft, and I needed to document every step of it. I needed to make sure that when she was caught, there would be no question of her guilt, no room for her to explain it away or make me look like the paranoid one. I needed her to hang herself, and I needed to hand her the rope. The thought should have bothered me more than it did. Class ended, and I moved through the day on autopilot, my mind elsewhere. Lunch found me in the library instead of the cafeteria. I was sitting at a computer terminal in the back corner where no one would notice me. I logged into my email, the same account I'd had for years, the password unchanged, and started going through old messages. There. The acceptance email from Stanford, dated March 1st, 2008. Confirmation of my early decision. Welcome to the Cardinal family. I took screenshots of everything, saving them to a flash drive I'd brought specifically for this purpose. Then I logged into the Stanford admission portal using the credentials from my acceptance letter. Everything was there. My application, my essays, my test scores, my acceptance letter in PDF form. I downloaded all of it, backed it up twice, and then, carefully, methodically, changed my password to something Lily couldn't possibly guess. Not that it would stop her, but it would force her to work harder, to be sloppier, to make mistakes, and I would be there to catch every single one. Skipping lunch, I jumped, nearly knocking over my water bottle. Kenji stood behind me, holding a sandwich wrapped in cafeteria plastic. Just needed to check something, I said, closing the browser windows quickly. He pulled up a chair, sitting down backward like he always did. You're being weird, like weirder than usual. Thanks. I'm serious. What's going on? I looked at him. Really looked. Kenji, who'd believed me. Kenji, who'd tried to help me prove what Lily had done. Kenji, who'd ultimately been powerless against the tide of skepticism and familial loyalty that had drowned my accusations. Could I tell him? Could I explain that I'd lived an entire other life? That I'd died and somehow woken up here? That I was about to orchestrate my own sister's downfall? If someone stole something from you, I said slowly, something really important, and you knew they were going to get away with it unless you did something extreme, would you do it, even if it meant hurting them? Kenji's eyebrows rose. That's weirdly specific. Hypothetically. I mean, it depends on what they stole and who they were, I guess. But yeah, probably. If they stole it first, they started the hurting. Such a simple moral framework, such a 17-year-old way of seeing the world. But he was right, wasn't he? Lily had stolen from me first. Everything that came after was just consequence. Why? Kenji asked. Did someone steal something from you? Not yet, I said, but they will. I spent the next 3 weeks preparing. I bought a small security camera online using money I'd saved from my library job. One of those nanny cams hidden in a clock. I installed it in the hallway upstairs, angled perfectly to capture anyone going through the mail on the hall table where Mom always left it. I backed up all my college documents 3 different ways. I took photographs of my acceptance letter, my student ID card, everything that proved who I was and what I'd earned. And I watched Lily. She was good, so good. She went through her days like any normal teenager, stressing about finals, complaining about our parents, making plans for prom. If I hadn't known what was coming, I never would have suspected she was capable of something so calculated. But I did know. And once I started watching, really watching, I saw the signs I'd missed the first time around. The way she angled her phone away from me when we were in the same room, like she was hiding something. The way she'd started asking casual questions about my Stanford acceptance, about when I planned to submit my housing deposit, about whether I'd decided on a major yet. The way she volunteered to get the mail every day for a week straight in early April, until Dad mentioned he'd appreciate if we'd let him keep doing it since it was part of his routine. She was gathering information, testing boundaries, waiting for her moment. I let her. I played the part of oblivious Maya, the one who trusted her twin, the one who'd never imagined betrayal. I complained about financial aid forms. I worried about being far from home. I acted exactly like the girl I'd been the first time. Uncertain, anxious, vulnerable. And all the while, I was building my case. April 15th fell on a Tuesday. I skipped my last 2 classes, claiming I felt sick, and came home early. The camera was recording. I'd tested it that morning to make sure. I positioned myself in my room with the door cracked open, a clear view of the hallway. The mail usually came around 3:30. At 3:28, I heard the mail truck rumble up the street. My heart started pounding so hard, I thought it might crack my ribs. This was it. This was the moment where everything could go wrong or spectacularly right. The mailbox creaked open and shut. Footsteps on the walk. The mail slot in the front door clattered. I stayed in my room listening. Mom was at work. Dad was asleep after his night shift. It was just me and, soon, Lily. The school bus hissed to a stop outside at 3:45. I heard Lily's key in the lock, heard her dump her backpack on the floor in the entryway. "Anyone home?" she called out. I held my breath. Silence, then the sound of her moving through the first floor, checking rooms, confirming she was alone. My phone buzzed. I'd set up the camera to send me alerts on motion. I watched on the app as Lily climbed the stairs, moved to the hall table, and picked up the mail. There, the thick envelope with Stanford's return address. She turned it over in her hands, her expression unreadable on the grainy camera feed. For a moment I thought she might just leave it there, that maybe this time, in this timeline, she'd be different. Then she tucked it under her arm and walked into her room, closing the door behind her. I counted to 10, then 20. At 30 seconds, I got up and walked across the hall, knocking on her door. "Yeah?" she called out. "Did the mail come?" A pause. "I don't know. I just got home." "I thought I heard you downstairs." I went to the bathroom. Didn't check the mail. I tried the doorknob. Locked. "Can I come in? I need to borrow your calc notes." "I'm changing. Give me a minute." I stood there waiting. Through the door, I heard subtle movements, a drawer opening and closing, the shuffle of papers. When she finally opened the door, she was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, her face perfectly neutral. "What's up?" she asked. "Calc notes. For the test tomorrow." "Oh, yeah, they're..." She glanced around her room and I followed her gaze. Everything looked normal. Neat, organized, typical Lily. "On my desk somewhere. Let me find them." While she rummaged through papers, I scanned the room. The Stanford envelope was nowhere visible, but I knew it was here, hidden, waiting for her to make her next move. "Here." She handed me a spiral notebook. "Just give it back tonight. I'll need to review too." "Thanks." I paused at the door. "Hey, did your acceptance letter come yet?" From state? Something flickered in her eyes. Not yet. Soon, though. Nervous? Not really. It's my safety school. Right. Her safety school. The place she'd end up going in this timeline because Stanford would be off the table. Because I was going to make sure of it. I went back to my room and pulled up the camera footage on my laptop, rewinding to the moment Lily came home. I watched it twice, making sure the video was clear, that the envelope was identifiable, that her actions were unambiguous. She'd hidden my mail. She'd lied about it directly to my face. It was enough for now. Over the next 2 days, I watched the camera feed obsessively. Lily didn't touch the envelope again, but she didn't give it to me either. It stayed hidden in her room somewhere, and every hour that passed made her more complicit. On Thursday afternoon, I came home to find Mom in the kitchen looking concerned. Honey, did your acceptance package come from Stanford? The deposit deadline is coming up, and we need to submit the financial aid forms. My stomach clenched. I don't think it's come yet. That's strange. They said mid-April, didn't they? Maybe it's just late, but Mom was already frowning, already reaching for her phone. I'm going to call them tomorrow. Make sure nothing got lost in the mail. Perfect. Exactly what I needed. That evening, I caught Lily in the hallway. Hey, Mom's worried about my Stanford packet. You sure you haven't seen it? Maybe it got mixed up with your stuff? Why would it be in my stuff? I don't know. Sometimes mail gets mixed up. Well, it's not. She pushed past me toward her room. Maybe you should check the portal if you're so worried. I did. It says everything's fine, but the physical packet has important forms we need. Then call them. Mom's going to. That stopped her. She turned, and for just a second, I saw calculation in her eyes. I'm sure it'll show up. Yeah, I said. I'm sure it will. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things that had gone wrong in the original timeline. Not just the theft, but everything that had come after. Oh, yeah, the way my parents had slowly stopped believing me. The way I dropped out of community college after a year because I couldn't afford it and couldn't focus anyway. The way I'd worked dead-end jobs while Lily got her degree, got her career, got the life that should have been mine. The way I'd become smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared completely. But I hadn't disappeared. I'd survived. And somehow, impossibly, I'd been given a chance to do more than just survive. At midnight, I got up and checked the camera feed one more time. The hallway was dark and empty. Lily's door was closed. Everything was quiet. I pulled up my notebook and added to my timeline. April 15th, acceptance packet arrives. Lily takes it, hides it, lies about it. April 17th, Mom expresses concern, plans to call Stanford. April 18th, what would Lily do next? In the original timeline, she'd had more time to work with because I hadn't been as vigilant. She'd been able to slowly gather all the information she needed. But now, with Mom about to call, with the pressure mounting, she'd have to move faster. She'd have to make a mistake. Friday morning, I woke to the smell of pancakes. Mom's pancakes, the ones she only made on special occasions or when she was stressed about something. I came downstairs to find her at the stove, Dad at the table with his coffee, and Lily already dressed and eating. Morning, sweetie. Mom flipped a pancake without looking at me. I called Stanford this morning, spoke to someone in admissions. My pulse quickened. And? They said they definitely sent your packet. It should have arrived by now. She turned, her face creased with worry. They're going to send a replacement, but it'll take a few days. In the meantime, they gave me your student ID number and told me you can access everything online. That's good. Did you try logging in recently? Yeah, a couple weeks ago. Everything was fine. Try again today, just to make sure. I want to submit that housing deposit as soon as possible. Across the table, Lily's fork scraped against her plate. The sound set my teeth on edge. I will, I said, sitting down and accepting the pancake Mom slid onto my plate. After school. We ate in relative silence, the tension I was feeling apparently invisible to everyone but me. Or maybe not. Dad kept glancing between me and Lily like he was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't have all the pieces to. You girls okay? He finally asked. Fine, Lily and I said in unison. You sure? You both seem... We're fine, Dad, Lily said, standing up and taking her plate to the sink. Just stressed about finals and college stuff, all normal senior year things. She left before anyone could respond, and I heard her car start a few minutes later. She'd gotten permission to drive separately today. Convenient. Maya? Mom sat down across from me. Is everything all right with you and your sister? Why wouldn't it be? I don't know. You've both been distant lately from each other. Because I know what she's going to do. Because I'm waiting for her to try. Because I've already lived through the aftermath of her betrayal, and I'm trying very hard not to let that anger seep into this moment, this timeline, this version of events where I still have a chance to stop everything before it starts. We're fine, I said. Yeah, just busy. Mom didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. I finished my breakfast, grabbed my backpack, and headed to school in Dad's car. The day crawled by. I couldn't focus on anything except what was coming. During lunch, I checked the camera feed on my phone. Nothing unusual, but the waiting was killing me. After school, Kenji caught up with me in the parking lot. Hey, bubble tea, you keep saying yes and then bailing. I can't today. You can't ever. Come on. 1 hour. You clearly need a break from whatever's eating at you. He was right. I was wound so tight I was going to snap. And maybe spending an hour doing something normal would help me think more clearly. Okay, I said. 1 hour. We drove to the boba place on Main Street, the one that would close in 2010 and become a phone repair shop. It was crowded with students from other high schools, the air sweet with the smell of tapioca and sugar. We found a table by the window, and Kenji ordered us both his usual, taro milk tea with extra tapioca. So, he said once we were settled, you going to tell me what's actually going on? And don't say nothing because you've been weird for weeks. I stirred my tea, watching the dark pearls swirl at the bottom. How much could I tell him? How much would he believe? Hypothetically, I started. Oh God, another hypothetical. Just listen. Hypothetically, if you knew someone was going to betray you, like really seriously betray you, but they hadn't done it yet, would you try to stop them or would you let it happen so you could prove they did it? Kenji frowned. That's dark. I know. I mean, obviously I'd try to stop them. Why would I let someone hurt me on purpose? Because if you stop them before they try, you can't prove they would have done it. They can just say you were paranoid or making things up. But if you let them do it, you get hurt. Yeah, I took a sip of tea, the sweetness coating my tongue. But then you have evidence. Then everyone has to believe you. Kenji was quiet for a long moment. This isn't hypothetical, is it? I don't know what you mean. Maya, come on. Is someone actually going to betray you? The words stuck in my throat. If I said yes, he'd ask who. And if I told him it was Lily, he'd either think I was crazy or he'd confront her himself, and either outcome would ruin everything. Forget it, I said. It's stupid. I'm just stressed. About college? About everything? He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Whatever it is, you can tell me. You know that, right? I did know. But I couldn't. Not yet. We finished our tea and drove back to his house, where his mom was home and immediately insisted I stay for dinner. Mrs. Park had always treated me like a second daughter, and sitting at their kitchen table, eating homemade dumplings and listening to Kenji bicker with his little sister, I felt something loosen in my chest. This was what I'd lost in the other timeline. Not just Stanford, not just career opportunities, but this: connection, family, the casual warmth of being known and cared for. By the time I got home, it was nearly 8. The house was quiet. Dad's car was in the driveway, but Mom's was gone. She had her book club on Friday nights. I let myself in and stood in the entryway, listening. Upstairs, I could hear movement in Lily's room. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. The feed showed an empty hallway. I rewound through the last few hours. There, at 6:47 p.m., Lily had come out of her room, looked around, and then walked quickly to my room. My door was closed, but not locked. I never locked it. None of us did. She'd been inside for 3 minutes. My blood went cold. I raced upstairs, trying to look calm, trying not to give anything away. My door was closed again. I opened it slowly. Everything looked normal at first glance. My desk was how I'd left it. My bed was made. My backpack was on the floor by the closet. Then I noticed my desk drawer was slightly open. I never left it open. I walked over and pulled it the rest of the way. Inside, my Stanford folder was there, but the papers had been rearranged. Someone had gone through them. And when I checked my laptop, which I'd left closed, the screen was still warm. She'd been on my computer. I sat down on my bed, my hands shaking. This was it. This was her making her move. But what had she accessed? What had she taken? I pulled up my laptop and checked the browser history. Someone had logged into my Stanford portal, or tried to. There were 3 failed login attempts, and then nothing. She'd tried to guess my password, and failed. My phone buzzed. A notification from the camera, motion in the hallway. I pulled up the live feed just in time to see Lily walking toward my room. I shoved the laptop under my pillow and grabbed a book from my nightstand, trying to look casual. She knocked once and opened the door without waiting for a response. "Hey," she said. "Oh, you were gone forever. Had dinner at Kenji's?" "Oh." She leaned against the doorframe, her expression unreadable. "Did you ever try logging into your Stanford portal? Mom's been bugging me to remind you." "Not yet. Why?" "Just wondering. She's worried you're going to miss some deadline." "I'll do it this weekend." "Cool." But she didn't leave. She stood there studying me, and I could feel the weight of everything unsaid pressing down between us. "Hey, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you trust me?" The question hit like a punch, because of course I didn't trust her. I knew exactly what she was capable of, what she would do given the chance. But she didn't know that I knew, and the dissonance was making my head spin. "Of course," I lied. "You're my sister." "Oh, right." She looked like she wanted to say something else. But instead, she just nodded. "Okay, good, that's good." She left, closing the door behind her. I waited until I heard her own door close before I pulled up my laptop again and started documenting everything. The failed login attempts, the camera footage of her entering my room, the displaced papers in my drawer. She was getting sloppy, desperate, which meant she was going to escalate. I needed to be ready. Saturday morning, I woke to yelling. Loud, angry voices downstairs that pulled me from sleep like an alarm. I threw on a sweatshirt and ran down to find Mom and Lily in the kitchen, Mom's face red with anger, Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Cannot believe you would do something like this," Mom was saying. "I didn't. I swear. I didn't." Then explain to me why I just got a call from Stanford saying someone tried to access Maya's account from this house at 2 a.m. My heart stopped. It wasn't me. Lily was full on crying now. "Why would I do that?" Mom turned to me. "Maya, did you try to log in last night?" "No, I was asleep." "See?" Lily gestured at me. "She's framing me. She's been acting weird for weeks, and now she's trying to—" "I'm not framing anyone," I said quietly. "I didn't even know there was a security alert." "Stanford called my cell because they couldn't reach you," Mom said, her voice tight. 3 failed login attempts from our IP address between 2 and 3 a.m. The security system flagged it as suspicious. "That's because someone tried to hack my account," I said. "Someone who doesn't know my password." Lily's face went pale. You think I didn't say that, but you're implying it." "Girls," Dad appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas, looking confused and concerned. "What's going on?" "Someone tried to access Maya's Stanford account in the middle of the night," Mom said. "From this house." Dad's eyes moved between me and Lily. "Was it you, Lil?" "No." Her voice cracked. "Why does everyone automatically assume it's me?" "Because Maya was asleep," Mom said, "and your father was asleep, and I was asleep. So unless we have a very tech-savvy ghost, it had to be one of you two." "Maybe someone hacked our Wi-Fi," Lily tried. "Or maybe Maya set this up to make me look bad." The accusation hung in the air, and I felt something dark and satisfied curl in my stomach. Because yes, I had set this up. Not the failed login attempts, those were all her, but everything else. The heightened security, the documentation, the slow, careful trap I'd been building for weeks. "Why would I do that?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Because you're jealous. Because you don't want me to succeed." "You haven't even gotten into Stanford, Lily. What would I be jealous of?" "But I will. I'm going to. And you can't stand the thought of us being at the same place, can you? You want to be special all by yourself." The irony was so thick I almost laughed, but Mom was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, and Dad was rubbing his temples like he could feel a headache coming on. "Nobody's accusing anyone of anything," Dad said finally. "Let's all just calm down." "I want to see her computer," Mom said suddenly. "Lily, bring me your laptop." "What?" "No, that's an invasion of privacy." "If you have nothing to hide—" "I don't. But that doesn't mean you get to go through my personal things." They argued for another 10 minutes while I stood there silently, watching Lily dig herself deeper and deeper. She was panicking, making it worse, doing exactly what I'd known she would do. Finally, reluctantly, she went upstairs and came back with her laptop. Mom opened it, checked the browser history, and frowned. You were on Stanford's website at 2:14 a.m. I was looking at their programs. That's not a crime. It's suspicious. Maybe I couldn't sleep. Maybe I was curious. About your sister's account? About the school? God, why is everyone treating me like a criminal? Because you are one, I thought, but didn't say. Because you were going to steal my entire future. And the only difference between this timeline and the last one is that this time I caught you before you could complete the theft. Everyone just calm down, Dad said again. We'll figure this out. But I could see it in Mom's eyes. The seed of doubt had been planted. She was questioning Lily in a way she never had in the original timeline, because this time there was evidence, there was a security alert, there was something concrete to point to. This time, the truth couldn't be buried. The rest of the weekend was tense. Lily stayed in her room. Mom made phone calls to Stanford, to our internet provider, trying to figure out what happened. Dad tried to mediate, to calm everyone down, but the damage was done. On Monday, I went to school and immediately pulled Kenji aside. You remember that hypothetical, I said, about someone betraying me? Yeah? It's happening, and I need your help. We sat in his car during lunch, and I told him everything. Not about the rebirth. I couldn't explain that. Didn't know how. But about the stolen acceptance letter, the failed login attempts, the camera footage. I showed him everything I'd documented, every piece of evidence I'd carefully collected. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. Holy shit, he said when I finished. Lily's trying to steal your spot at Stanford? Yes. He shook his head. That's beyond fucked up, Maya. I know. What are you going to do? I've been asking myself the same question, because I had evidence now, but it wasn't quite enough. Lily had tried to access my account. Oh, but she could claim she was just curious. She'd hidden my acceptance packet, but she could say she was confused, that it was an accident. I needed her to actually attempt identity theft. I needed her to try to confirm enrollment in my name, to forge my signature, to take that final irreversible step. And then I needed to report her. I'm going to let her try, I said. I'm going to give her just enough opportunity to think she can succeed, and then I'm going to make sure she gets caught. Kenji's eyes widened. That's cold. Calculated? I know. I was going to say brilliant, but yeah, also kind of scary. She was going to ruin my life, Kenji. She was going to take everything from me and never look back. I turned to look at him directly. Actually, she already did. In a way you wouldn't understand. He must have heard something in my voice. Some echo of the pain I'd carried for 23 years because his expression softened. Okay, what do you need me to do? Be my witness. When this goes down, I need someone who can confirm everything I'm saying, who saw it happen in real time. Done. We shook hands, and I felt something settle in my chest. I wasn't alone this time. I had help. I had proof. I had a plan. Now I just needed Lily to make her final mistake. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. On Tuesday afternoon, I came home from school to find a replacement packet from Stanford in the mail, the one Mom had requested. I took it upstairs, opened it in my room, and deliberately left one crucial document on my desk, the enrollment confirmation form, pre-filled with my information, a tree requiring only a signature and date. Then I went to run errands. Actually, I drove to Kenji's house and waited. The camera notification came 40 minutes later, Lily entering my room. I watched on my phone as she approached my desk, saw the form, and stood there for a long moment. I could almost see the calculation happening behind her eyes, the weighing of risk and reward, the decision. She picked up the form, studied it, and then, carefully, perfectly, signed my name at the bottom. Her handwriting was flawless, indistinguishable from mine. Of course it was. We'd been signing each other's permission slips since middle school. She took a photo of the form with her phone, then she put it back, arranging everything exactly as it had been, and left. I had her. I waited until that evening, until dinner, until we were all sitting around the table in what Mom still desperately hoped was normal family time. Dad was talking about work, Mom was talking about her book club, Lily was pushing food around her plate, and I was holding my phone under the table, the camera footage queued up. Hey, Mom, I said casually, did you know there's supposed to be an enrollment form in the Stanford packet? The one they resent. Mom looked up. Oh, yes, I saw that. Did you fill it out? Actually, I left it on my desk. But when I went to sign it this afternoon, I noticed something weird. What? I held up my phone showing the form I'd photographed before leaving for Kenji's. It was blank when I left, but when I came back, someone had signed it. The table went silent. Dad's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Mom's eyes widened. And Lily went absolutely still. "Let me see that," Mom said. I handed her my phone. She stared at the photo, then at Lily, then back at the phone. "Lily, did you sign your sister's enrollment form?" "What? No, why would I do that?" "Because there's a signature on it that wasn't there this morning." I pulled up the camera footage on my laptop, which I'd conveniently brought downstairs. "Want to see?" I pressed play. We all watched as Lily entered my room, picked up the form, signed it, photographed it. The timestamp was clear. The actions were unmistakable. Lily's face drained of color. That's not what it looks like." "What is it then?" Dad's voice was quiet, but there was something terrible in it. I wanted to see what the form looked like, for when mine comes." "So you signed it?" Mom's voice was shaking. "You forged your sister's signature?" "I didn't forge it. I was practicing, writing. It doesn't mean anything." "You also took a photo of it," I said quietly. "Why would you do that if you were just practicing?" No answer. Lily's hands were trembling. "And that's not all?" I pulled up more footage. This is from April 15th, the day the original Stanford packet arrived. We watched as Lily intercepted the mail, took the thick Stanford envelope, hid it in her room. "You told me it hadn't come," I said. "You lied directly to my face." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I was going to give it to you. I just wanted to look at it first." "For 3 days?" "I got scared. I thought if you went to Stanford, we'd never be close again. I thought I'd lose you." The lie was so transparent, so desperate, that I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You tried to hack my account?" I continued, pulling up the security alert. "At 2 a.m, 3 failed attempts." "That was an accident." "An accident?" Mom's voice was ice. "Lily, what were you doing?" "I just wanted to see if I could get in. I wasn't going to do anything." "You were going to steal my identity," I said flatly. "You were going to use my acceptance to enroll yourself at Stanford." No, I wasn't. But she was. We all knew it. The evidence was overwhelming, damning, absolutely clear. Dad stood up from the table, his face ashen. "Lily, tell me the truth, right now. Were you planning to steal your sister's college acceptance?" Lily's face crumpled. Everyone always talks about how smart Maya is, how accomplished, how she got into Stanford. Nobody ever asks about me. Nobody cares what I... "So the answer is yes," Dad said. "I wasn't going to actually do it." "You already did," I said. "You took the packet. You tried to access my account. You signed my enrollment form. The only reason you didn't succeed is because I caught you." Mom was crying now, quiet tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to your sister?" "Because everyone loves her more. Because she's the special one and I'm just... nothing." The outburst hung in the air, and I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy if it hadn't been crushed under the weight of everything she'd taken from me in the timeline that no longer existed. "You're not nothing," Dad said quietly. "But what you tried to do... Lily, this is identity theft. This is fraud. This is..." "I know," she was sobbing now. "Oh, I know it was wrong. But I didn't actually do it, did I? I didn't submit anything, so it doesn't count." "Intent matters," I said, "and you intended to steal my life." The words seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear in her eyes. Real, genuine fear. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. I'd thought about this question for 3 weeks. I'd imagined this moment, played it out in my head 1,000 different ways. In some versions, I was merciful. In others, I was vengeful. In most, I was somewhere in between. But sitting here now, looking at my sister's tear-stained face, seeing my parents' devastation, feeling the weight of all the choices that had led to this moment, I realized I'd already decided. I'd decided the moment I woke up back in 2008 with the knowledge of what she was capable of. "I'm going to report you," I said, "to Stanford. To the police if necessary." "Maya, no," Lily started. "Let me finish." My voice was steady, calm, nothing like the roiling emotions underneath. You were going to take everything from me, my education, my future, my identity. And in doing that, you would have destroyed this family anyway. So we might as well destroy it honestly. Maya, Mom's voice was pleading. She's your sister. She stopped being my sister the moment she decided I was worth less than her ambitions. But nothing actually happened, Mom tried, because I stopped it. I stood up, my hands flat on the table, because I documented everything and caught her before she could finish. But she tried, Mom. She tried to steal my entire life, and she would have succeeded if I hadn't been paying attention. Dad was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Respect? Horror? Some combination of both. What happens if you report her? He asked quietly. She'll be flagged for fraud. She won't be able to enroll anywhere this fall. She'll have to either take a gap year and reapply with full disclosure, or she'll have to explain to every school she tries to attend why she attempted identity theft. That'll ruin her life, Mom whispered. She tried to ruin mine first. Lily was shaking her head, still crying, still trying to deny the reality of what she'd done. I wasn't going to go through with it. I swear I wasn't. I just wanted to know I could. I wanted to feel like I was special too. You are special, Dad said. Nima, but his voice was hollow. You're your own person. You didn't need to steal your sister's accomplishments. But nobody sees that. Nobody sees me. Because you spent all your energy trying to be me, I said, instead of figuring out who you actually were. The cruelty of the words landed exactly as I intended. Lily flinched like I'd slapped her. Mom was still crying. Dad was staring at the table. And I was standing there holding all the cards, all the power, all the evidence I needed to completely dismantle my sister's future. It should have felt satisfying, righteous, like justice. Instead, it just felt heavy. I'm going to my room, I said. You all can decide how you want to handle this. But tomorrow morning, I'm calling Stanford's admissions office. I walked upstairs, leaving my family in pieces at the kitchen table. Inside my room, I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. I'd done it. I'd caught her. I'd exposed her. I'd won. So why did I feel so empty? I pulled out my phone and texted Kenji. It's done. His response came immediately. You okay? I don't know. Want me to come over? No. I just need to think. I sat on my bed, surrounded by all the evidence I'd gathered. The files, the footage, the documentation, everything I needed to prove that Lily had tried to steal my identity. Everything I needed to make sure she paid for her crimes. And underneath that, buried deep, the knowledge that in the original timeline, she'd succeeded. She'd lived my life. She'd become me more or less in all the ways that mattered to the outside world. Had she been happy? I'd never thought to wonder before. I'd been so focused on my own pain, my own loss. Wait, that I'd never considered whether the life she stole had actually fulfilled her. Probably not, because stolen things never fit quite right. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Lily. From my friend's phone since Mom took mine. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. In the old timeline, we'd stopped talking after the theft. We'd existed in the same family, occasionally forced into the same room for holidays and funerals, but we'd stopped really communicating. We'd become strangers who happened to share DNA. Was this timeline going to be any different, or had I simply moved up the deadline for our mutual destruction? I typed, "There's nothing to talk about. You tried to steal my life. That's not something you apologize for and move on from." Her response came fast. "It's not too late. I didn't actually do anything irreversible. We can pretend this never happened, but it did happen, and I can't unknow what you're capable of. Please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. There's nothing you can do. It's over." I turned off my phone and lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, I could hear raised voices downstairs. My parents arguing, probably about what to do, how to handle this, whether to protect one daughter or the other. They couldn't protect both. That was the terrible truth of it. Someone was going to get hurt, someone was going to lose, and I'd made sure it was Lily instead of me. The gardenias outside my window were in full bloom, their scent drifting through the screen, sweet and suffocating. In a few weeks, they'd wilt. In a few months, they'd be gone entirely. I'm dead until next spring. Everything dies, everything ends, everything gets its season and then moves on. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but all I could see was Lily's face across the dinner table, the moment she realized she'd been caught, the moment she understood there would be consequences. Good, I thought. Let her feel it. Let her know what it's like to lose everything. But the satisfaction I was grasping for remained stubbornly out of reach. The next morning, I woke early. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I went downstairs and found Mom sitting at the kitchen table, still in her pajamas, a cold cup of coffee in front of her. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Morning," I said quietly. She looked up at me, her eyes red. "Your father and I talked all night, and we think you need to report this. Not to punish Lily, but because it's the right thing to do. What she tried to do was wrong, and there need to be consequences." I'd expected relief at hearing this. Instead, I just felt tired. "Where is she? Still in her room. She won't come out." Mom's voice cracked. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry we didn't see this coming. I'm sorry we raised someone who thought this was acceptable. It's not your fault. It is, though. Somewhere along the way we failed her. And you." I sat down across from her. "You didn't fail me. We didn't protect you either." I protected myself. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. "You shouldn't have had to. You're 17. You should be worried about prom and finals, not this." 41, I thought. I'm 41 years old in a 17-year-old's body. And I've spent longer than you've been my mother preparing for this exact moment. But I couldn't say that. So instead, I just squeezed her hand and said, "I'm going to make the call now." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Do you want me to be there?" "No. I need to do this alone." I went into Dad's office and closed the door, pulled out my phone, dialed Stanford's admissions office, waited through the automated menu until I reached a real person. "Hi, my name is Maya Chen. I need to report an attempted fraud case related to my admission." The woman on the other end became immediately serious, professional. "Can you describe the situation?" So I did. I explained everything. The stolen packet, the failed login attempts, the forged signature. I offered to send documentation. I gave them permission to flag my account with additional security measures. The whole conversation took 20 minutes. When I hung up, I felt hollowed out. There was a knock on the door. "Maya, can I come in?" "Dad." I unlocked the door and let him in. He looked as exhausted as Mom, his face drawn. "You called them?" he asked. "Yeah." "How did it go?" "They're opening an investigation. They'll contact local authorities since it involves identity fraud." He nodded slowly, then sat down heavily in his desk chair. "I keep trying to figure out where we went wrong. With Lily, with how we raised you two. You didn't do anything wrong. We must have, otherwise, why would she think this was okay?" "Because she wanted something more than she wanted to be a good person," I said. "That's not on you, that's on her." "But why? Why would she want to be you so badly?" "Because being me came with things she wanted, things she thought she couldn't get on her own. Stanford would have accepted her too if she just applied herself. Maybe, but that wasn't good enough. She didn't want to work for it. She wanted to take the shortcut." Dad rubbed his face with both hands. "The police are going to come, aren't they?" "Probably. Stanford said they're required to report attempted fraud." "Jesus." "Yeah." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Dad said quietly, "Are you sure this is what you want? There might still be time to what? Pretend it didn't happen? Let her get away with it?" To choose mercy over justice. The words hit harder than I expected, because wasn't that the question, really? Not whether Lily deserved punishment, she clearly did, but whether I wanted to be the kind of person who delivered it so thoroughly that it destroyed her. In the original timeline, there had been no mercy. For me. She'd taken everything and never looked back. She'd chosen her future over mine without hesitation. Why should I give her what she never gave me? "She didn't choose mercy," I said. "Why should I?" "Because you're better than her," Dad said simply. "You always have been. And if you go through with this, if you press charges and make sure she's punished to the fullest extent, you might win, but you'll lose something too." "What?" "Your sister, your family, a part of yourself." "I already lost all that, in a way you don't understand." Dad looked at me strangely. "What do you mean?" I'd said too much. "Nothing, I just mean, I know what it's like to have her take everything from me, and I'm not letting it happen again." He didn't push, but the concern in his eyes deepened. "Just think about it. Really think about what you want the next 10, 20, 30 years to look like. Because whatever you decide now, you'll have to live with for the rest of your life." I'd already lived 30 years with the consequences of her choices. Now she could live with the consequences of mine. But I didn't say that to Dad. I just nodded and waited until he left before pulling out my documentation and starting to organize everything for when the police came. They arrived 3 hours later. 2 officers, a man and a woman, both looking uncomfortable to be investigating a case between twin sisters. They interviewed me first, going through all the evidence. Asking careful questions about my relationship with Lily, about whether there had been any prior incidents. "Has your sister ever exhibited this kind of behavior before?" the female officer asked. "Not in this timeline," I thought, "but in the one that no longer exists, she stole my entire life and got away with it." "She's always been competitive," I said carefully, but I didn't think she'd go this far. They talked to Lily next. I could hear her crying through the wall, could hear her trying to explain, to minimize, to make them understand it wasn't as bad as it looked, but the evidence didn't lie. And there was a lot of evidence. When they finished, they sat down with my parents and explained the next steps. Criminal charges were possible, but not certain. A lot would depend on whether Stanford wanted to press the issue. So whether the district attorney thought there was enough evidence to prosecute a juvenile for attempted fraud. But even if there are no criminal charges, the male officer said, there will be consequences. The attempted identity theft will be on record. It'll affect her ability to apply to colleges, to get scholarships, possibly to get jobs. "How long?" Mom asked quietly. "How long will this follow her?" "Hard to say. Could be a few years. Could be longer." Mom looked at me, and I saw the question in her eyes. "Is this really what you want?" I made myself meet her gaze, made myself nod, made myself be certain. Because I was certain, wasn't I? This was justice. This was what Lily deserved. This was me protecting myself from someone who had already proven in another lifetime that she couldn't be trusted. The officers left. My parents went into their room and closed the door, and I was alone with Lily's muffled sobbing coming through the wall. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. That evening, Kenji came over. We sat in my car in the driveway, not really talking, just existing in the same space while I processed everything that had happened. "You did the right thing," he said finally. "Did I?" "She tried to steal your identity. What else were you supposed to do?" "I don't know. Something that didn't feel like this." "Like what?" "Like I just destroyed my family." Kenji was quiet for a moment. Then, "Your family was already destroyed the moment she decided to do this. You just made it visible." Maybe he was right. Maybe the dysfunction had always been there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right pressure to crack everything open. Or maybe I'd created the dysfunction by bringing the knowledge of one timeline into another, by judging Lily for crimes she technically hadn't completed yet, by punishing her for something she'd done in a life that no longer existed. "Can I ask you something?" Kenji said. "Yeah. That hypothetical thing you kept asking about knowing someone was going to betray you, was that? I mean, how did you know? How did you know Lily was going to do this before she actually did?" I'd known this question was coming eventually. I just had a feeling. She'd been asking weird questions, acting strange. I got paranoid and started documenting everything. "That's some next-level paranoia? Or just good instincts?" He didn't look entirely convinced, but he let it drop. Well, we sat in silence for a while longer, watching the sun set through the windshield, painting everything orange and gold. "What happens now?" he asked. "I go to Stanford. Lily deals with the consequences. My family tries to put itself back together." "Will you be able to put yourselves back together?" "I don't know." "Do you want to?" The question caught me off guard. Did I want to rebuild a relationship with Lily? With parents who might always wonder if I'd overreacted, if I'd been too harsh, if there had been another way? In the original timeline, the family had fractured anyway. Slowly, quietly, but completely. We'd become people who sent Christmas cards but never called, who showed up for funerals but not birthdays, who shared blood but not much else. At least this time, the break would be honest. At least this time, everyone would know exactly why we couldn't be close anymore. I want to not have to think about it for a while, I said. Kenji nodded. Fair enough. He left around 9. I went inside to find the house still quiet. Everyone sequestered in their own rooms, processing privately what we couldn't seem to face together. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought about all the choices that had led here. Lily's choice to steal, my choice to set the trap, the universe's choice, if it was a choice, to send me back here with the knowledge of what she'd do. Was this always how it was going to end? Or had I made it inevitable by approaching the situation with the cynicism of someone who'd already been betrayed? If I'd tried to talk to Lily to understand why she felt so competitive, so desperate, would that have changed anything? Oh, or would she have stolen my future anyway, just more carefully? I'd never know because I hadn't given her that chance. I'd decided from the moment I woke up in the past that she was the enemy, and I'd treated her accordingly. My phone buzzed. Another text from Lily's borrowed number. I know you won't forgive me, but I need you to know something. I wasn't trying to steal your life because I wanted to hurt you. I was trying to steal it because I wanted to be you, because everyone loves you more, because you're the good one and I'm just the one who tried. I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed, "That's not my problem. You made your choice, and you made yours. I hope you're happy with it." I turned off my phone and rolled over, pulling the covers up to my chin. Outside, the gardenias were blooming in the dark. Their scent sweet and persistent, filling the room with a heaviness I couldn't escape. I hope you're happy with it. Was I? I'd won. I'd protected myself. I'd made sure Lily paid for what she tried to do. But I didn't feel happy. I felt tired and sad and strangely hollow, like I'd burned down a house to kill a spider, and now I was standing in the ashes wondering if it had been worth it. The police report was filed. The investigation was opened. Stanford added extra security to my account and assured me that my acceptance was safe. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd lost in the other timeline, was secured. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I cried myself to sleep. The next few weeks were a blur. Lily stopped going to school, suspended, pending the investigation. My parents moved through the house like ghosts. I barely speaking to each other or to me. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional sound of someone crying behind closed doors. I went through the motions: school, homework, finals. My teachers were sympathetic, but confused about what exactly had happened. The rumor mill worked overtime, spinning increasingly elaborate stories about what had gone down between the Chen twins. Most people thought Lily had tried to steal money. Some thought it was about a boy. Almost no one guessed the truth, that she'd tried to steal my entire future, because who would believe that? Who would believe someone could be that calculating, that desperate? I would, because I'd seen her succeed at it once already. Kenji stuck by me through everything, but even he seemed unsettled by how thoroughly I dismantled my sister's life. "I'm on your side," he said one day at lunch, "but I'm starting to wonder if maybe you could have handled this differently." "How?" "I don't know. Talked to her, gotten your parents involved before going to the police. She would have denied everything, and then she would have been more careful next time." "So you just went nuclear immediately?" "I protected myself?" "Yeah, you did. But at what cost?" I didn't have a good answer for that. The cost was my family, my relationship with my sister, my parents' trust in their ability to raise decent children. The cost was the look in Mom's eyes when she saw me, like she didn't quite recognize the person I'd become. But the alternative cost would have been my future, my Stanford acceptance, my entire life. Wasn't that worth protecting, no matter the price? I kept telling myself yes. I kept insisting I'd done the right thing, but the conviction was getting harder to hold on to. In late May, a letter arrived from the district attorney's office. They'd decided not to press criminal charges. Lily was a minor. The theft wasn't completed. There were mitigating factors like family dysfunction and mental health concerns that they felt warranted leniency. But there would be consequences. Lily was being placed in a juvenile diversion program. She'd have to do community service, attend counseling, and write apology letters to Stanford and to me. The attempted fraud would be on her record, though it would be sealed when she turned 18 if she completed the program successfully. It was more mercy than I'd expected her to receive, more mercy than I'd necessarily wanted her to have. But I was tired, so tired, and maybe In some small way, I was relieved that the punishment wasn't as severe as it could have been. "Are you satisfied?" Mom asked me that evening, her voice carefully neutral. "I don't know. You got what you wanted? Lily's being punished. Your acceptance is safe." "Yeah." "Then why do you look so miserable?" I didn't have an answer for that either, because winning wasn't supposed to feel like this. Victory wasn't supposed to taste like ashes. "I need to ask you something," Mom continued, "and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. How did you know? How did you know to document everything, to set up cameras, to catch her in the act? It's like you knew exactly what she was going to do before she did it." My heart started pounding. "I told you. I had a feeling." "That's not good enough, Maya. Normal people don't set up surveillance cameras because they have a feeling. Normal people don't collect evidence like they're building a legal case unless they already know there's something to find. Maybe I'm not normal. Or maybe something else is going on." She leaned forward, studying my face. "You've been different since March. Distant, like you're carrying something heavy that the rest of us can't see. What happened to you?" "Everything," I thought. An entire lifetime happened to me. I lived 23 more years, watched our family fall apart, died alone in a hospital bed, and somehow woke up back here with a chance to change everything. But I couldn't say that. So instead, I said, "I just grew up faster than you expected." No. Growing up doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you calculated. It doesn't make you willing to destroy your own sister. She was going to destroy me first. Was she? Or did you just think she was? The question hung between us, and I felt something crack open in my chest. Because what if she was right? What if I'd created this entire situation by approaching Lily with suspicion instead of trust? What if my knowledge of the other timeline had become a self-fulfilling prophecy? No, I'd seen the evidence. Lily had taken the packet, had tried to access my account, had signed my enrollment form. Those weren't things I'd made up or imagined. They were real. But would she have done them if I hadn't been watching? If I hadn't set the trap? If I just lived my life normally, trusting my sister like I was supposed to? I'd never know. "I need to be alone," I said, standing up. "Maya, please. I just need to think." I went upstairs and closed myself in my room, pulled out my notebook, the one where I'd documented everything, read through the timeline I'd created, the evidence I'd collected, the trap I'd so carefully constructed. And for the first time since waking up in the past, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. Not in protecting myself, that part still felt right, but in the way I'd gone about it. In the coldness with which I'd executed my plan, in the satisfaction I'd felt watching Lily realize she'd been caught. I'd thought I was preventing tragedy, but maybe I'd just been perpetuating it in a different form. The gardenias outside my window were starting to wilt now, their white petals browning at the edges, their scent turning from sweet to sour. In a few more weeks, they'd be completely dead, waiting for next spring to bloom again. Would my family bloom again? Or had I killed something that couldn't be revived? I pulled out my phone and before I could talk myself out of it, texted Lily. "Can we talk?" The response came quickly. "Why? So you can gather more evidence against me?" "No, I just want to talk. Really talk. I have nothing to say to you. Please, Lily." Silence for a long moment. Then, "Fine. Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Main? Noon." I agreed and put my phone away, my heart racing. I didn't know what I was going to say to her. I didn't know if I could undo any of the damage I'd caused, but I had to try. Because maybe justice wasn't the same thing as rightness. Maybe being victorious wasn't the same thing as being whole. And maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance to find something other than destruction in the ruins of our relationship. The coffee shop was mostly empty when I arrived the next day. Lily was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 weeks. I got my coffee and sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Lily said, "Why did you want to meet?" "I don't know, I just felt like we needed to talk." "About what? About how I'm a terrible person? About how you were right and I was wrong? I already know all that." "That's not why I'm here." "Then why?" I took a breath. "I want to understand. Why you did it." "So why you thought stealing my acceptance was the answer?" She laughed bitterly. "You want to understand? Fine, I'll tell you. And she did. She told me about growing up as the second twin, the one who was always just slightly behind me in grades, in achievements, in our parents' pride, about how she'd tried so hard to be her own person, but kept getting compared to me anyway. About how she'd watched me get into Stanford early decision and felt like she'd failed at something fundamental, even though she hadn't even applied yet. I knew I could probably get in if I tried, she said, but probably wasn't good enough. I wanted to be guaranteed. I wanted to not have to wonder. And you already had it. You already had everything. It seemed so easy for you. It wasn't easy. I worked my ass off. I know, but it looked easy. And I convinced myself that it wouldn't really hurt you if I just borrowed your acceptance, that you'd get over it, that you'd find something else. She looked down at her coffee. I was going to do great things with that acceptance. I was going to make it mean something. It already meant something to me. I know that now. But at the time, all I could think about was myself, about what I wanted, about how unfair it was that you got everything first just because you were born 7 minutes earlier. 7 minutes. That's all that separated us. 7 minutes, and yet it had somehow created a hierarchy neither of us had known how to escape. I'm sorry, Lily said quietly, for what I tried to do, for what I wanted to do. I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you. Yeah, you did. Ugh. Are you ever going to forgive me? The question sat heavy between us. Could I forgive her? Could I look at my sister without seeing the person who'd stolen my entire future in another timeline? Could I move past the betrayal, even knowing it had been prevented? I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday, but not yet. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. The counselor I have to see says I need to work on my self-worth, that I tried to steal from you because I didn't think I was good enough on my own. Are you? Working on it? Trying to. It's hard. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our coffee. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't entirely hostile either. It was just sad. A mourning for something that had died before it could fully live. Can I ask you something? Lily said. Okay. How did you know? How did you know to watch me so carefully? It was like you already knew what I was going to do. I'd known someone would ask eventually. Mom had hinted at it. Kenji had wondered. Now Lily was asking directly. And maybe she deserved the truth. At least part of it. I had a dream, I said slowly, about you taking my Stanford acceptance. It felt so real that when I woke up, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was going to happen. So I started watching, started documenting, and when you actually did try to take it, it was like the dream was coming true. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was close enough. Lily stared at me. You had a dream about me betraying you, and you believed it so much that you set me up? I didn't set you up. You chose to do what you did, but you were watching, waiting. You wanted me to try so you could catch me. I wanted to protect myself. By destroying me, you destroyed yourself, Lily. You made the choice to steal. I just made sure you faced consequences for it. She looked away, blinking back tears. I hate that you're right. I hate that I can't even be mad at you because what I did was worse. You can be mad at me. I think I was pretty harsh. Yeah, you were. She met my eyes. But I probably deserved it. We finished our coffee without saying much more. When we got up to leave, Lily paused at the door. For what it's worth, she said, I hope you have an amazing time at Stanford. I hope you do all the things I was going to do with your acceptance, and I hope someday you can think of me without hating me. I don't hate you, I said, and I was surprised to realize it was true. I just don't trust you, and I don't know if I ever will again. Fair enough? She left, and I stood there for a moment, watching her walk away down Main Street, her shoulders hunched against the spring breeze. I'd won. I'd protected my future. I'd made sure Lily paid for her attempted theft, but I'd also lost something. Maybe not as much as I would have lost if she'd succeeded, but something nonetheless. My family would never be the same. Lily and I would never have the easy twin relationship that other siblings seem to have. There would always be this between us, this knowledge of what she tried to do and what I did in response. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some things weren't meant to be repaired, only survived. Graduation came and went in a blur of caps and gowns and forced smiles for family photos. Lily and I walked across the stage at different times, our names alphabetically separated by enough distance that we didn't have to stand next to each other. In the crowd, Mom cried. Dad looked tired, and I felt the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on my shoulders like a too heavy robe. That summer was strange. Lily worked at a grocery store and did her court-mandated community service. I worked at the library and prepared for Stanford. We mostly avoided each other, moving through the house like planets in separate orbits, occasionally intersecting but never quite touching. Mom and Dad tried to act normal, but the cracks showed. They'd stopped having their evening conversations on the back porch. They ate dinner in silence more often than not. They looked at both of us like they weren't quite sure who we were anymore. And maybe they weren't. Maybe we'd all become different people in the wake of what happened. In August, I packed for Stanford. It should have been exciting. Moving across the country, starting college, beginning the life I'd fought so hard to protect, but mostly I just felt numb. The night before I left, there was a knock on my door. Lily stood there holding something wrapped in tissue paper. "Can I come in?" I nodded, and she sat on my bed, looking around at my half-packed room. "So you're really going," she said. "Yeah. That's good. I'm glad." She handed me the wrapped package. "I made you something for Stanford." I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a photo album filled with pictures of us from childhood. Us at 6, gap-toothed and grinning. Us at 10, arms slung around each other at the beach. Us at 15, dressed up for some school dance, looking like we liked each other. "I know things are different now," Lily said quietly, "but I wanted you to remember that they weren't always this way. That once we were close. That once we were on the same side." I flipped through the pages, my throat tight. She was right. We had been close once, before competition and comparison and desperation had driven a wedge between us. "Thank you," I managed. "I also wanted to say," she took a breath, "I'm proud of you for getting into Stanford, for working so hard, and I'm sorry that I almost took that from you. I'm sorry I made you have to fight to keep what was yours." "I'm sorry too," I said, "for how brutal I was about it. You weren't brutal. You were smart, and you protected yourself. I can't be mad at you for that." We sat in silence for a moment. The photo album opened between us, evidence of a simpler time. "Do you think we'll ever be okay again?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe. But it'll take time, a lot of time." "Yeah." She stood up, pausing at the door. "Be happy there, okay? Be really, really happy. Make it worth it." "Worth what?" "Worth everything that happened to get you there." She left, and I was alone with the photo album and my half-packed bags and the weight of a second chance I wasn't sure I'd used wisely. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up and went to the window, looking out at the backyard. The gardenias were long gone now, their blooming season over, just green bushes waiting for next spring. Everything in cycles. Everything in seasons. Birth and death and rebirth. I'd been given a second chance, and I'd used it to protect myself, to prevent tragedy, to make sure I didn't lose what I'd lost before, but in doing so, had I created a different tragedy? Had I destroyed my family to save myself? I didn't know. Maybe I'd never know. Maybe that was the price of the kind of foreknowledge I'd been cursed with, the ability to prevent one disaster while accidentally creating another. Or maybe this was just how it had to be. Maybe there was no version of events where everyone got what they wanted, where no one got hurt, where everything worked out perfectly. Maybe life was just a series of impossible choices, and you did the best you could with the information you had, even when that information came from a life you'd already lived. I climbed back into bed and closed my eyes, thinking about Stanford, about the future stretching out ahead of me, about all the possibilities that were mine now because I'd fought to keep them. And underneath that, the ghost of a sister I'd once been close to, a family I'd once belonged to, a version of myself that hadn't needed to be so hard, so calculating, so willing to win at any cost. The next morning, Dad drove me to the airport. Mom stayed home. She couldn't handle goodbyes, she said. They made her too emotional. Lily was already at work, so it was just me and Dad sitting in airport traffic, not saying much. "You okay?" he asked finally. "I think so." "You don't sound sure." "I'm not sure about anything anymore." He glanced at me, then back at the road. "For what it's worth, I think you did what you had to do. And I think Lily needed to face consequences for her actions. But Maya, yeah? Don't let this make you hard. Don't let what happened with your sister turn you into someone who can't trust anyone, who always assumes the worst. You caught her before she could really hurt you. That's good. But don't spend the rest of your life waiting for the next betrayal. His words hit deeper than I think he realized, because wasn't that exactly what I was doing? Carrying the knowledge of one timeline's betrayal into another, living in constant anticipation of being hurt? I'll try, I said. That's all any of us can do. He hugged me tight at the departures curb, holding on longer than usual. Make good choices, he said, but also make some bad ones. That's how you figure out who you are. I promised I would, and then I was through security and at my gate, and finally on a plane heading west, leaving behind everything that had happened. Stanford was beautiful. The campus sprawled across acres of California sunshine, palm trees swaying in the breeze, sandstone buildings glowing golden in the afternoon light. It was everything I'd dreamed of in the original timeline, everything I'd lost and then fought to reclaim. My roommate was a girl from Oregon named Sophie who played lacrosse and wanted to study environmental science. She was friendly and normal and had no idea that I was carrying the weight of 2 lifetimes into our shared dorm room. Classes started, and I threw myself into them with an intensity that surprised even me. I joined clubs, made friends, stayed up late studying and talking and being the kind of college student I'd never gotten to be before. But at night, alone in my room, I thought about Lily, about my parents, about the family I'd left behind in pieces. I called home once a week. The conversations were stilted, careful. Mom asked about classes, Dad asked about food. Nobody mentioned Lily unless I asked first, and then they were vague. She was doing okay. She was working on herself. She was planning to apply to community college for the spring semester. We never talked about what had happened. It sat between us like a third presence on the call, impossible to ignore, but too painful to address. In October, I got a letter from Lily. An actual physical letter, handwritten on notebook paper. Dear Maya, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but my counselor says I should write this, so here goes. I've been thinking a lot about what I did, about why I did it, and I've realized that I spent so much of my life trying to be you that I never figured out how to be me, so I thought if I could just have your acceptance, your spot at Stanford, I'd finally be good enough. But that's not how it works. You can't borrow someone else's accomplishments and call them your own. You can't steal someone else's identity and expect to feel whole. I know that now. But I had to lose everything to learn it. I'm applying to colleges again. Smaller schools this time. Places where I can start over, where I can build something that's actually mine. And I'm terrified. Because what if I'm not good enough? What if I try my best and still fail? But I'm going to try anyway. Because that's what you would do. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know that I'm working on being better. On being someone worth being, instead of someone worth stealing from. I hope you're happy at Stanford. I hope you're living the life you fought so hard for. Love, Lily. I read the letter 3 times, sitting on my dorm room floor, crying in a way I hadn't let myself cry since all of this started. Because she was right. You couldn't borrow someone else's life and call it your own. But the corollary was also true. I couldn't live in fear of what someone might do in a timeline that no longer existed. I'd been so focused on preventing tragedy that I'd forgotten to actually live. Maybe it was time to change that. I wrote back. Not a long letter. I wasn't ready for that. But enough to let her know I'd received hers, that I was thinking about her, that maybe someday we'd find our way back to being sisters. Maybe not the kind of sisters we'd been before, but something new. Something forged in the aftermath of betrayal and consequence and the painful work of rebuilding. The semester flew by. Before I knew it, it was December and time to go home for winter break. I was nervous about it. The first time we'd all be together since everything happened. But when I walked through the door of our house, something was different. The tension that had been suffocating last summer was still there, but softer somehow, more manageable. Mom hugged me tight. Dad looked genuinely happy to see me, and Lily, coming down the stairs, gave me a tentative smile that I found myself returning. We had dinner that night, all 4 of us at the table. It wasn't easy. There were long silences and careful conversations and subjects we all tiptoed around. But we were there, together, trying. I got accepted to community college, Lily said at one point. I start in January. That's great, I said, and I meant it. It's not Stanford. It doesn't have to be. It's yours. She looked at me, and something passed between us. Not forgiveness exactly, not trust, but maybe the beginning of understanding. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the backyard. The gardenia bushes were bare and dormant, waiting for spring. Everything in cycles, everything in seasons. I'd been given a second chance, and I'd used it to fight, to protect, to prevent disaster. But maybe the real work of a second chance wasn't just preventing bad things from happening. Maybe it was learning to live with the consequences of the choices you made, even when those consequences were messy and painful and complicated. Maybe it was accepting that you couldn't control everything, couldn't predict every outcome, couldn't protect yourself from every possible hurt. Maybe it was just letting go. I pulled out my phone and texted Kenji. Made it home. Family's weird, but okay. How are you? His response came quickly. Good. Home for break too? Want to get coffee tomorrow? Yes, definitely. I put the phone down and climbed into bed. My childhood bed in my childhood room, and thought about everything that had led here. 2 timelines, 2 versions of events, 2 different outcomes. In one, Lily had stolen my future and gotten away with it. In this one, she'd tried and failed, and we'd all paid a price for her attempt. Which was better? I didn't know. Maybe neither. Maybe they were just different. Each with its own costs and benefits, its own lessons and losses. But this time, at least, I'd had agency. This time, I'd made my own choices instead of having them made for me. That had to count for something. The next morning, Kenji picked me up for coffee. We went to the same boba place we'd gone to back in April, and it felt like coming full circle. So, he said, once we were settled, how's Stanford? Amazing, challenging, everything I wanted it to be. And your family? Still broken, but maybe healing, slowly. And you? How are you? I thought about it, really thought about it. How was I? I'm okay, I said finally. Not great, not perfect, but okay. And that feels like enough right now. That's good. That's really good. We talked about his college experience, about our mutual friends from high school, and about everything that had happened in the months since we'd seen each other. It was easy and comfortable, and reminded me why we'd been friends in the first place. When we got up to leave, Kenji said, Hey Maya? Yeah? I'm proud of you, for protecting yourself, for surviving, for being here. Thanks. I'm proud of me too. And I was. Not proud of everything I'd done. Some of it had been harsh, probably harsher than necessary, but proud that I'd fought for my future, that I'd refused to be a victim again, that I'd used my second chance to change the outcome, even if that outcome wasn't perfect, even if it had cost more than I'd expected, even if I'd never know whether it was the right choice or just a different one. Winter break ended. I went back to Stanford, spring semester started. I took harder classes, joined more clubs, made deeper friendships. I started dating someone, a guy from my physics class who made me laugh and didn't ask too many questions about my complicated family situation. Life went on. Forward. Not backward. New experiences instead of repeated ones. And slowly, gradually, the weight I'd been carrying started to feel lighter. I still thought about the original timeline sometimes, still wondered what had happened to that version of me, whether she'd found any peace before the end. But the wondering became less frequent, less consuming, because I was building a new life now. A different one that was mine because I'd fought for it, yes, but also one that I needed to actually inhabit instead of just protect. In March, Lily sent me another letter. She'd joined a support group for people dealing with family estrangement. She'd started therapy more seriously. She'd made the dean's list at community college. I'm not trying to be you anymore, she wrote. I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not comparing myself to you. It's harder than I expected, but also kind of liberating. I wrote back this time, a longer letter. About Stanford, about what I was learning, about how strange it was to have everything I'd wanted and still feel uncertain about the future. Maybe that's just life, I wrote. Maybe certainty is overrated. Maybe the whole point is to make choices without knowing if they're right, and then live with the consequences the best you can. She wrote back. I wrote back. Slowly, tentatively, we started rebuilding something. Not sisterhood, not yet, but maybe the foundation for it, and my parents noticed. Mom called one day in April, crying happy tears because Lily and I were talking again. Dad sent me a text that just said, "Proud of you both." It was small, fragile, but it was something. By the time summer came around, I decided to stay in California. I got an internship at a tech company, found an apartment with 2 other students, stayed close to Stanford's campus. I didn't go home, not because I was avoiding it, but because I was finally, actually, living my life instead of just protecting it. Lily came to visit in July. Just her, no parents. She'd saved up from her job, bought a plane ticket, wanted to see where I lived. We spent a weekend together, toured campus, ate at my favorite restaurants, stayed up late talking about everything that had happened and everything that might happen next. "I'm glad you're here," I told her the night before she flew home. "I'm glad we're trying to be okay with each other." "Me too." She paused. "Maya, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you still think about it? About what I tried to do?" "Sometimes. Less than I used to." "Do you think you'll ever really forgive me?" I looked at my sister, my twin, my mirror, my almost destroyer, and realized something. I had already forgiven her. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, in small increments, by choosing to respond to her letters, by letting her visit, by believing that people could change. "I think I already have," I said. "I just didn't realize it until now." She started crying, and I did too, and we sat there on my apartment balcony, both of us damaged but healing, both of us trying to figure out how to move forward from something that had almost destroyed us. "Thank you," she whispered. "Well, for what?" "For giving me a chance to be better, for not giving up on me completely. You're my sister, I had to try. Not everyone would. Yeah, well, we're stuck with each other, so we might as well make it work." She laughed through her tears, and I did too. And it felt like the first genuinely light moment we'd had in over a year. Maybe we'd be okay. Not perfect, not uncomplicated, but okay. And maybe that was enough. The rest of college passed in a blur of classes and internships and late-night study sessions, and all the normal chaos of being young and figuring things out. I changed my major twice. I had my heart broken and eventually pieced it back together. I made mistakes and learned from them, and made new mistakes and learned from those too. And through it all, Lily and I kept in touch. Not constantly, not intensely, but enough. She transferred to a 4-year university. She found a major she loved, social work, helping other people navigate difficult family situations. She even got a boyfriend, a guy she met in one of her classes who made her happy. My parents slowly healed too. The fractures in their marriage caused by the stress of what happened started to mend. They went to couples therapy. They learned how to talk to each other again. They accepted that their daughters were complicated people who'd made complicated choices, and they loved us anyway. We had family dinners when I visited. We sent group texts. We celebrated holidays together, though they were never quite as easy as they'd been before everything happened. But they were real, honest, built on a foundation of what we'd survived rather than what we'd lost. Senior year, I wrote my thesis on identity and choice. Not because of what happened with Lily, at least not consciously, but because the themes kept appearing in my life, demanding to be examined. Who are we when we're defined by what we could have been? What does it mean to choose one path, knowing it closes off others? How do we live with the weight of roads not taken? I didn't have answers, but asking the questions felt important. At graduation, my whole family came. Mom, Dad, and Lily, all sitting together in the crowd, cheering when I walked across the stage. It was the first time in 4 years that we'd all been in the same place, and it felt right. Afterward, we took pictures. Lily and I stood together, our arms around each other, and for the first time since everything happened, it didn't feel forced. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I'm proud of you too. We're okay, aren't we? We're actually going to be okay." "Yeah, I think we are." I moved to San Francisco after graduation, got a job at a nonprofit, started building an adult life. Lily moved to Portland, started her career in social work, began her own journey of building something meaningful. We visited each other a few times a year. We texted regularly. We were sisters again, in the way that mattered. Not perfect, not uncomplicated, but present for each other. And sometimes, late at night, I thought about the original timeline, the one where Lily had succeeded in stealing my identity, where I'd spent 23 years in her shadow, where I'd died alone and angry and small. That version of me was gone now, erased by whatever cosmic accident had given me a second chance. But I felt like I owed her something, that angry, hurt version of myself who'd suffered so much. I owed her this, a life well lived, a future reclaimed, a family rebuilt, even if it was messy. I owed her happiness. And I was trying. Every day I was trying. 5 years after graduating from Stanford, I got a call from Lily. She was engaged. She wanted me to be her maid of honor. I said yes without hesitation. At her wedding, standing next to her in a dress that was slightly too fancy for my taste, watching her marry someone who clearly adored her, I felt something settle in my chest. We'd made it. We'd survived. We'd found our way through the darkness and come out the other side. Not unchanged. You can't go through something like we did and come out the same, but changed in ways that had made us stronger, more honest, more fully ourselves. When it was time for the speeches, I stood up with my glass of champagne and looked at my sister. When we were kids, I said, people used to ask us if it was hard being twins. And we'd always say no, because we didn't know any different. We thought everyone had a built-in best friend, a mirror, a person who knew them better than anyone else. I paused, my throat tight. But the truth is, it was hard. It's hard to be constantly compared. It's hard to share everything, your face, your birthday, your parents' attention. It's hard to figure out who you are when someone who looks exactly like you is right there, doing it too. Lily was crying. So was Mom. I pressed on. We went through something really difficult a few years ago, something that could have destroyed our relationship forever. And for a while, I thought it had. But Lily worked hard to become someone worth forgiving, and I worked hard to become someone capable of forgiving. And somehow, impossibly, we made it through. I raised my glass. To my sister, who I've known literally since before we were born, who I've hated and loved and fought with and forgiven, who taught me that people can change, that families can heal, and that sometimes the hardest thing to do is give someone a second chance. Everyone drank, and Lily got up and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself." We held each other for a long moment, two people who'd started life as one entity and had spent years figuring out how to be separate but connected, independent but intertwined. Life unfolded. Years passed. I got married too, eventually. Had kids, built a career I was proud of, visited my sister in Portland and had her visit me in San Francisco. Watched our kids grow up as cousins who actually liked each other, who didn't have to compete because we'd learned, painfully, slowly, how to be sisters without rivalry. And sometimes, very occasionally, I had dreams about the other timeline, about the life I'd lost, about dying alone in a hospital bed, full of regrets and anger and the bitter knowledge that I'd been erased. But then I'd wake up in my bed, in my house, next to my partner, and I'd remember, that version didn't happen, this one did, and this one, messy and complicated and hard one as it was real. I'd been given a second chance and I'd used it to fight, to protect, to reclaim what was mine, but more importantly, I'd used it to learn, to grow. To figure out that justice and mercy weren't opposites, they were two sides of the same coin, and you needed both to build something that would last. On my 42nd birthday, the age I'd been when I died in the original timeline, I went to visit my parents. They were older now, slower, but still healthy, still together, still trying their best. We had dinner, just the four of us. Me, Mom, Dad, and Lily, who'd driven down from Portland for the occasion. "Remember when we used to have family dinners every night?" Mom said, "before everything got so complicated?" "Everything's still complicated," Lily said. "We just got better at handling it." "That's true," Dad agreed. "You girls have come a long way." I looked around the table at my family, imperfect, damaged, but whole in the ways that mattered, and felt a wave of gratitude so intense it took my breath away. I'd been given a second chance, and I'd used it to save myself. But in doing so, I'd also saved them. All of us. From a future where we'd been broken beyond repair. "Thank you," I said suddenly. "For what?" Mom asked. "For not giving up on us?" on each other, for trying. That's what families do, Dad said. They try. We ate birthday cake and told stories and laughed at old memories. And when it was time to leave, Lily hugged me at the door. I'm glad you were born 7 minutes before me, she said. Why? Because you taught me how to be brave, how to fight for what I wanted, how to keep going even when everything was falling apart. You taught me those things too, I said, in your own way. Yeah? Yeah. Though, by being the kind of challenge that forced me to become stronger. She laughed. That's a nice way of saying I almost ruined your life. You did almost ruin my life, but you also gave me a reason to fight to keep it. So, thank you, I think. You're welcome, I think. We both laughed, and it felt light, easy, like the kind of joke only people who'd survived something together could make. I drove home that night under a sky full of stars, thinking about beginnings and endings, about the paths we take and the ones we leave behind, about the impossible gift of getting to try again. The gardenias in my parents' backyard would bloom next spring. They always did. Death and rebirth, endings and beginnings, the eternal cycle of things falling apart and coming back together. I'd been given a second chance to live my life, and I had. Messily, imperfectly, but fully. And that, in the end, was enough. The scent of gardenias drifted through my memory as I drove, sweet and cloying and impossibly alive. A reminder that some things bloom again, no matter how many times they die. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, so do you.